It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
First of all, I can't even watch The View because I have a smart TV. It won't play it.
Okay, John. Yesterday, as I said, I listened to the entire Kamala Harris interview with Alex, or the Call Her Daddy podcast. And I have to tell you that of all the things I listen to Kamala do, it's interesting. I'm hearing her name being pronounced both ways now. It's her preferred method, or preferred pronunciation is Kamala, correct?
Yeah, but I call her Kamala in honor of the 1980s wrestler originally known as Sugar Bear Harris.
And what was her name? Kamala?
Kamala, yeah.
That was really spelled the same way and everything?
Yeah, Kamala Harris. Yeah, he was originally known as Sugar Bear. He wrestled in Memphis, discovered by Jerry Lawler, and then he moved to the WWF.
And his last name was Harris as well, too?
Yeah, Sugar Bear. His nickname, he played football. His nickname was Sugar Bear, but his last name was Harris. Yeah, you could look it up, Sugar Bear Harris. And he went by Kamala.
Okay. I thought she did a real good job in this. Probably the best interview I've ever heard her do. They got into this abortion thing. Now, I'm going to come out and say, ladies, do you know how you get pregnant? Has anybody sat down with you women out there, and say, well, if you have a man and you have sex, there's a chance that he may fertilize the eggs in you, and you could get pregnant.
That's right. By the way, Brad, you're assuming men can't get pregnant, which is very heteronormative of you and cisgender of you. But go ahead.
I'm sorry. Okay, so here's my deal, and I will just be upfront and say this: as a man, if you go to get a woman pregnant, and she goes full term and delivers that baby, and you're not married to her, maybe she's a friend of yours, maybe you hooked up, one night stand at a bar or something like that, chances are you're probably going to hear from her, or maybe her attorney, and maybe, matter of fact, wasn't this what made the Jerry Springer show the hit that it was, when they would do the DNA tests, and you're not, and it was Maury Povich did the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're not the father. Okay, the reason being is that if you were the father, then under the law, you had legal responsibility to support that child. Am I right on that?
Yeah, that's correct. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that's usually used in terms when the man chooses to not take responsibility for his child. I think a woman would rightfully seek child support. Absolutely.
Okay, but up until birth, the man has no say. He has no say. And to the point where...
legally, right? Legally.
Well, for example, let's use the scenario. Two women meet at a bar. Two women. That's the new reality. Guy and a gal meet at a bar. They hook up. Maybe they do it a couple times. And a couple weeks later, she calls him and she says, hey, I'm pregnant. Okay. The dude can do one of two things. He can hang up and say... Or he can say, I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I can't hear you on the phone. He can be one of those jerks. Or he can say, You know what? We need to sit down and have a talk. Okay? And let's say he said, you know what? I don't know you that well, but, maybe we've got something going here. And, maybe we should start dating. And, maybe we should even get married. I really want to have a relationship with you because I want to have that son or that daughter, whatever you're carrying.
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely. It's a beautiful thing.
That's one scenario. The other scenario is she could say right off the bat, well, you know what? I don't want to have any kids. I'm going to have an abortion. And
I'm going to kill this child because it's inconvenient.
The guy can't say, I'm sorry, you can't do that. He has no say-so, right? Okay.
That's correct, yeah.
Go back to the Kamala Harris thing. She gives all these scenarios about how it's so terrible that if women get pregnant, and she goes through this whole scenario that in the southern states right now, almost all the southern states in the United States, except for North Carolina, I think it's the one she gave as an example, the woman can't drive somewhere close to get an abortion. She has to get on a plane, she has to fly somewhere, and she has to stay in a hotel, and she goes through this whole thing. And I'm thinking to myself, no, hold on a minute now. So in other words, the woman is essentially just saying, hey, that guy is off the hook. Shouldn't the woman be calling the dude and say, hey, look, it took two to tango. I want you to go with me to the abortion center. I want you to buy my plane ticket to wherever. But yet she's making it out that once the woman is pregnant, oh my God, it's all the woman's fault.
That she's a victim. Yeah. Now let's be fair. Let's be honest. There's certainly men who create children who abdicate their responsibility and leave women on their own.
I agree. But that's not all men. You know,
yeah, right. I 100% agree with that,
I mean,
Brad, obviously.
The way Kamala's talking, that here's men. Hey, babe, let's go jump in the sack, and I'm going to get you pregnant. I'm going to disappear. Oh, my God, I can't wait. Let's go do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly what. Now, but let me interrupt, Brad. Of course, Kamala, a.k.a. Kamala, of course she's exaggerating, and of course she's picking out the most extreme examples. It's like people who are afraid to make a pro-choice argument and who point to ectopic pregnancies. Or, well, what about a woman who has a complication whose life is in danger? Of course they're going to pick the most extreme examples.
Well, I just thought it was to the point where, see, the problem that I have is that I do believe in the big picture, there are a lot of stand-up guys out there, and a lot of guys that, you know, that will essentially own up to their actions, that, you know, take responsibility for things. And I don't think every guy, as they make it out to be, like, and not only that, I'm thinking to myself, okay, women, you know, how do you not get pregnant? Don't have sex. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, let's be honest. That's like saying, well, I went to practice football and I broke my leg. Well, guess what? That's a possibility. Matter of fact, you get a broken leg, broken arm. That's all under the realm of possibility when you play football. Okay, when you have sex, there's a chance that
Absolutely.
that there could become a pregnancy out of it. So in other words, women, and not only that, it's to the point where it's like, what are you doing hooking up with guys that leave you, you know, pregnant and walk away from it? I don't understand that. You know,
I mean, I just don't. Excuse me. I just don't understand how someone creates a human life, whether you're male or female. But let's talk about men here. I don't know how you create a human life and then you abandon it. And then you think, well, this human life, I mean, think of the men who abdicate their responsibility after a child is born. Like somebody who is part of a child's life. Look at the Mike Kehoe example. Now, we don't know Mike Kehoe's dad, but who walks out on a family? Who walks out on a child? You know, like, I just don't understand abdicating your parental responsibility.
I couldn't agree with you more. And to me, that guy who does that is not a real man. He's less.
Absolutely.
He's less than a man. A man is going to stand up and say, you know what? We need to have a talk about this because, you know, obviously I didn't intend to get you pregnant, but you know what? You know, let's sit down and work this out, right? Not disappear and he goes to L.A. and you don't ever hear from him again. You know, now there are some instances where let's take it, and I'm going to say this, and women are going to get upset with me. There's some women that's exactly what they want. They don't really want, let's be honest, they want a sperm donor. They don't want a guy in their life.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like,
and I mean, there's processes to do that. Like there are women who reach a certain age and decide, look, I really want to have kids, but I haven't found a man who I want to spend the rest of my life with, and they go out and they seek that, right?
Well, as a man, when I'm listening to that podcast, it bothered me that Kamala's making it out that like, oh, all guys want is they want to have sex and they want to have no responsibility. And if they get their partner, you know, pregnant, oh, it's all on her and she's got to pay for it. And she made it out to the point where it's like, you know, it's like the old days, you know, you'd say like, well, I went to school. I had to walk 20 miles one way up in the snowstorm to school every day, you know, that kind of a thing. It's like, okay, I get it, you know, and once again, here in the St. Louis area, Planned Parenthood, Central West End, it's not here anymore. You just drive across the river and there's Planned Parenthood over there in Fairview Heights.
And Brad, it was going to make the top 3 yesterday, and there were so many good stories that it didn't. But St. Louis Public Radio, imagine that, had a hero story about a pro-choice group that goes into pro-life states, and they advertise that you can get the abortion pill over the phone. So different attorneys general throughout the United States are trying to crack down on that practice. But essentially, if you're pregnant in the state of Missouri and that child is inconvenient, or, you know, Christmas is coming up and you don't want to look fat in the family Christmas photos, you just call a telehealth line. They ship you an abortion pill, and you get rid of your unwanted child.
And I think I remember hearing recently that 60% of all pregnancies are now ended by the pill. They're not actually ended by abortions anymore. So that's got to be sort of a moot point. Okay, number 2, Bezos. You read the op-ed. What was your opinion of that?
I did. Thank you for putting me onto that, Brad. I probably wouldn't have read the whole thing if it wasn't for you.
What did you think?
Well, I mean, where to even begin? I thought first of all, I was shocked that Jeff Bezos is speaking so frankly about the media industry. And for folks who haven't read it, I guess I'll summarize it real quick, Brad. Bezos and his ties to the Washington Post, he's come out and said there's really no point in newspapers endorsing candidates today, because he used an example that Brad Hildebrand has used, which is nobody in Pennsylvania is going to pick up the newspaper and say, well, the Washington Post endorses Kamala Harris. I should vote for her too. And he talked about the declining importance of endorsements. But the really interesting part, and maybe you felt this way too, I thought the most interesting part is he says when you have a decline in the faith of journalism, when people broadly and universally look at the media and say, those people are biased, I don't even want to hear what they have to say, people are more likely to go and listen to podcasts that are very loosely fact-checked, or they're going to go find somebody with a wacky opinion on social media that seems more credible or seems like they're delivering news that other people aren't. Excuse me. So his point was we have to get back to improving our reputation among readers.
Okay.
What did you think, Brad?
Oh, I was fascinated by op-ed, because he gave the statistics that as far as trustworthiness is concerned, that Congress was like at 38% and journalists were like at 12% or something like that.
For the first time ever.
Yes.
Yeah, his point was for the first time ever,
yes,
journalists rank lower in trust than Congress.
The problem is, and you and I talk about this all the time, you can go to CNN.com and MSNBC.com, and Trump's this terrible, horrible person, and you go to Fox and you see Trump smiling with his orange vest on in a trash truck, and you go like, oh my God, that's so funny. Okay, and to the point where if you listen to Morning Joe or watch Morning Joe, they're never going to say anything nice about Trump. If you listen to STLPR, the whole NPR thing, I've talked about this before. National Public Radio, probably the majority of affiliates around the country are owned and operated by universities. Okay, let's just say for the sake of argument that 90% of the people who are the professors at universities are conservatives, right? Wouldn't you say that'd be right, John? No, it's
absolutely not.
Yeah, it's like 95% of the people at universities are liberals. So in other words, what are you going to get? And why is it that when you listen to NPR and they always, we brought in Professor so-and-so to give us the total information on this, it's going to be some whack job left-wing professor. And once again, remember when, here you and I talk about this, Yuri Berliner, the guy who
Uri
came out from NPR and said to you and I, when he comes out and says, hey, guess what? In my newsroom here in Washington, D.C., there's not one single person that voted for Donald Trump. Did you think that was earth-shattering news, John?
Yeah, absolutely not. And the good thing about this, though, Brad, excuse me, again, and what exacerbates this is that we had in 2022 was the first year that I saw it happen on a widespread level. Republican candidates, whether they be Eric Schmidt or others, would go to very clearly liberal outlets, whether they're a liberal blog or a television station, and say, no, we're not going to do an interview. If you want our statement, we'll send you our statement. We'll send you our campaign positions. We're not going to talk to you like you're an objective journalist. And many people, Brad, many lamented that and said, did the whole democracy dies in darkness. And in general, I think you should debate your candidates. I think you should debate your opponents. You should sit down with a local newspaper where it makes sense. But you can't pretend, if you're in Kansas City, that KCUR is going to give you a fair shake. Well, you can't pretend that some liberal blog is going to be fair to you.
The big picture issue is this is business 101. It's called barrier to entry. Okay. Back in the day, if you wanted to be a successful newspaper like the Post-Dispatch or back in the day, the Globe Democrat, you had to have the huge infrastructure of a bunch of reporters, of the expensive typesetting machines, of the expensive printing press, and you have to have a whole fleet of vehicles to drive the papers around, stuff like that. If you wanted to be a broadcaster, first barrier to entry, you had to have a license from the FCC. Then you had to build a tower, and you had to put the equipment in. Okay, nowadays, you want to have a success on the internet, you want to do a podcast, you go to Guitar Center, you buy a couple microphones. For years, I used a condenser microphone that I bought at Guitar Center for $25. And I actually had one of my radio buddies call me up one day, go, boy, that new microphone you're using, what is that? I go, you don't even want to know. Well, what is it? Is it a Neumann? Is it an AKG? No, it's a $25 microphone. I bought it at Guitar Center. And he was like, there's no way it's a 20. Once again, if you said to me, I just bought, just a couple weeks ago, I got delivered the other day, I've got this little digital recorder. It's made by this company called Zoom. It's a brand new model that came out. It's $150. It's got 2 microphone inputs on it, and it's super simple to operate. Literally, the whole thing about this is use what they call 32-bit float, and you plug 2 microphones in, you hit the record button, you don't have to set any levels, and you're in business. You buy a couple, Shure SM58s for $100 a piece. They'll last you for your entire life. They're great microphones. You buy a couple stands at $20 a piece, a couple cables for $400, you're in the podcast business. You know what I mean? There's no barrier to entry anymore. And that's what's changed everything. That's how Joe Rogan has gotten to be one of the most influential guys in the country. That's how Alex from Call Her Daddy has got to be one of the influential, and back in the day it was Adam Carolla who got fired from the radio business, who decided one day, screw, I don't want to do this radio business anymore. It's a bunch of jerks you work for. The managers are all buttheads. The owners are all buttheads. I'll just build my little studio and do podcasts. And back in the day...
It's your point, Brad. It's the free market of ideas.
Exactly.
And we can't pretend it's a level playing field, because it's not as though, MSNBC isn't more powerful than, a guy with a podcast and O'Fallon.
Well,
so of course it's not. The playing field isn't quote unquote level, but it's the freedom of ideas, to your point, Brad.
I've made this point several times, and I've had people actually debate me on this, and they can't believe it. I tell them that if you take one of the cable TV channels, like, for example, MSNBC, there are markets where there's one radio station in one city who has more listeners, and I know it's different between listeners and viewers, has more listeners in one radio station in one city than MSNBC has viewers in the entire country. People go, well, how can that be? Because of the fact that nobody watches MSNBC anymore. It's to the point where you get a popular radio station. Back in the day here in St. Louis, it used to be KMOX. KMOX had like a 30 share in the market or something like that. Just a crazy number. Okay, let's end the show with John. With Mr. Comms Guy, how would you rate Donald Trump showing up in a trash truck wearing his safety vest as far as media response to Biden saying all the Trump voters or the Trump fans were garbage? How would you rate him showing up in the garbage truck with a safety vest on?
Hall of Fame performance, and it will be in political strategy books if they're still printing books for decades to come. Brad, either yesterday or the day before, you and I both talked about the fact that what he should do, much like McDonald's, is he should go out there and collect trash cans. And what did he do? He went out there and drove he rode along in a garbage truck. Fantastic. And then did you see, I'm sure you saw, he gave his speech wearing the garbage collector outfit.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I got this from listening to Mark Cox this morning, but him and Kim St. Onge, today is Halloween. You know what their costumes are?
Are they going to be garbage?
They are Garbagians, where they put trash can liners over their heads. They wear them I wear them as raincoats, and I think they put on their Garbagians.
Oh, that's so good. But I mean, you talk about something that could have a slight influence on the election. We don't want to overstate it, but think of the people that were kind of on the fence that might be pushed over by that comment.
Well, the thing to me was, I have 2 of my friends text me yesterday afternoon, "You're not going to believe what Trump's did." And they're sending me screenshots that they took off of and the other point of this was, I don't know if you heard this, that I have yet to see this, but I read this story somewhere online that CNN said, "Hey, we know that Donald Trump is doing a campaign appearance in Wisconsin. Let's go live." And the shot was him getting up into the truck, and I'm thinking, well, CNN's probably going, "Oh, we shouldn't have taken that live shot." I saw that and I thought to myself, this guy is brilliant, or whoever behind, and the crazy thing about it is, at some point, somebody said, Mr. Trump, we got this great idea. We've got a company and that was a brand new trash truck. So they got it from somewhere, a dealer or something like that. We got this idea where we're going to take a trash truck and we're going to put Trump on the side of it. And we're going to give you one of those orange vests like all the construction and the trash guys wear. And we're going to have you. And now one of two things he could have gone, "That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard." Or he could have go, "Yeah, what the hell," right?
And he did. We saw he did the letter. I love it. And if Trump wins, I think this is going to be one of those joyous moments. Kamala said we need to have more joy. It'll be one of those joyous moments.
You and I talked. We're over 30 seconds more. What's fascinating to me about this is the whole thing after the Democratic convention. Joy. We're going to have puppy dogs and daisies and beautiful sunsets, and now it's turned into Trump is the one who's got the smile on his face and he's doing all the goofy stuff. And Kamala's going. Matter of fact, I read this the other day that in her speech, which nobody cares about, where she did her closing statement at the ellipse and stuff like that, she mentioned Trump like 29 times. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. I mean, don't.
Where's the joy? Where's the joy?
Yes, where is the joy? It's gone. The joy is Trump scooping up French fries at McDonald's and driving a trash truck. And not only that, have you heard this? Was it Vivek Ramaswamy? Supposedly, he did someplace yesterday and did a photo op where he's on the back end of a trash truck, actually on a trash route, helping the guys pick up the cans and dump into the trucks. I'm going like,
I saw it. I mean, any kind of, I saw that, and anything can bring you joy, Brad. It's like the great DJ Easy Rock and Rob Bass said, "Joy and pain, like sunshine and rain."
And
1988.
And once again, this plays into my emotional soft spot, where this is what you call disruptive campaigning. It's the example of, how do you get attention? You get a trash truck, you put Trump on the side, you put him in an orange vest, and you have him jump in the truck, and then he wears the vest to the rally. I'm going like, it doesn't get any better. And what I think it shows the Democrats as being, they don't have a sense of humor anymore. They're too busy. Well, that's terrible. We can't have you go in the building without a mask. We can't have you. You got to be vaccinated.
Yeah. And here's Donald Trump with a sense of humor picking up garbage. He's the new Oscar the Grouch.
Exactly. John, I'm sorry we went over. Okay.
No problem. We'll talk tomorrow.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?